Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This informative, educational series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of the state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for more than 65 years.
So many in Louisiana simply know him as Archie. Even those who never met him, those who only saw him play, feel they have a first-name kinship with him, a familiarity that comes with being the face and later the voice of the New Orleans Saints. For nearly 30 years, Archie Manning's legend was made on the football field. He's a hero to generations of Louisiana fans, but to a smaller, more intimate group, he's something much more important than that.
I think, when you mention legend, I think my dad would probably appreciate more of what he did off the field than on the field as a legend. He's kind of prides himself on being a family man, and he likes to be, I guess if he could be phrased as one thing, he'd like to be a good guy.
The man so closely identified with sports in Louisiana was born in Mississippi. His football legend began to grow at his hometown, Drew High School, and later at Ole Miss, where he was named All-American and had his number retired. After college, Archie was 1971's number 2 draft pick for the New Orleans Saints. He was selected the NFL's most valuable player in 1978. He played in 2 Pro Bowls, and Archie was voted the most popular player in the history of the New Orleans Saints franchise. And he remains as much a part of his community as he was when he played the game.
Well, I think unlike a lot of players, he stayed here. He came and he stayed. And he didn't just buy a mansion and isolate himself from the community. He's very much involved in it.
Veteran New Orleans sportscaster Jim Henderson worked with Archie as the voice of the Saints when our Louisiana legend made a successful jump from the gridiron to the broadcast booth.
Without question, he just approached it as the next challenge in life. And he was going to be as good at that as he was on the playing field as a player, and I truly think he was. Archie could have done big things as an analyst on ESPN or perhaps a network if he chose to. I think probably one of the main reasons he didn't was what it would do to keep, as far as keeping him away from his family.
I think being a husband and being a father, I think, are things that he has worked very hard at and had success with. He has a great relationship with my mom and three boys that love and adore him. So I think he's been very successful in that field.
And although Archie has never defined himself primarily as a football player, he's immensely proud that his sons, including NFL star Peyton Manning, have tried to fill his cleats.
When Peyton was at Tennessee and Eli was playing at Newman, there were many weekends that Archie would see Eli play football at Newman on Friday night, rendezvous with Peyton and watch Peyton play for Tennessee on Saturday, then meet up with the Saints and do a Saints game on Sunday afternoon. So that was the schedule he was keeping in the final year before he decided to retire and follow Peyton's career more closely, and Eli as he moved on eventually to Ole Miss.
Archie has also been successful in business and charity, involved with causes like the Special Olympics, the Boy Scouts, and cystic fibrosis. Louisiana legend Archie Manning, a man who has received much from his adopted home, but who's always tried to give back much more. Join host Gus Weill for a visit with a Louisiana legend.
Elijah Archibald Manning III was born in Drew, Mississippi, and the rest is history, but not just a unique history because of your phenomenal football prowess, but I think because of the dynasty which you and your wife appear to be producing in this very rarefied occupation, quarterback. It's a pleasure to be with you, Archie.
It's my pleasure, Gus.
What was it like growing up in Drew?
Wonderful.
It was?
Wonderful. 2,000 to 2,500 people, farming town, cotton in those days, right in the middle of the Mississippi Delta, just Mayberry, if you will. Couldn't be. I don't know how. I didn't know there was anything better, and I'm not sure there was. Just wonderful people, of course. Small town. Good. We had a good school system. Never locked your car. Never locked your front door. Didn't take. My mother never didn't believe in taking the keys out of her car. We walked as a kid. You walk everywhere. You walk all over town. Go play ball in somebody's yard. Go to the ballpark and play ball. Go to the swimming pool. Just wonderful people, friends, and a great place to grow up.
Now, how were you attracted first to athletics? Although that may be a stupid question. I'm sure every boy in Drew wanted to play something.
Well, I think I was a little over, or somewhat of a fanatic at a young age. It was from no pushing from my parents. My dad ran a farm machinery, like I said, it was a farming community. He ran a Case farm machinery place there in Drew. Had been a high school athlete, liked sports, but didn't push me that way. We'd go out and pitch the baseball every now and then. He'd go to my Little League games, but nothing much more than that. But I really liked it at a young age. Gus, we lived right across the street from the school. We just happened to live there. Now, and coaches would, of course, high school, junior high coaches come and go, but the housing for those coaches was by the school usually. They were neighbors of ours. My mother and dad, my dad especially, was a little bit older, and it seemed that my mother and dad would kind of adopt these young families when they'd come in and be nice to them. They'd have little kids and do things for them, you know, as they're moving into town. They were living off teachers and young coaches' salary. And maybe in return, those coaches spent a lot of time with me. I can remember at a young age, 9 or 10 years old, a coach saying, "You want to go on a scouting trip with me? You want to run over to..."
What a beginning for a kid in Drew.
I liked it. And I stayed out in my yard all the time, throwing the ball to myself or throwing it up against the wall. And a lot of times these guys were young. They'd spend time with me. I got asked at a young age they were high school coaches, maybe to go to the high school practice. I remember one year I got invited to go off to football camp with them as a manager. So I really had a real interest in it at an early age. Followed the big leagues, followed college. I was just about 80 miles from Oxford, Drew was. So Ole Miss had, Johnny Vaught was coaching at Ole Miss. Ole Miss had great teams in those years. I followed the Rebels. But I followed Mississippi State. My dad was a New York Giants fan because of Charlie Connolly, who was the quarterback there. He was from Clarksdale, Mississippi, right up the road. So I was really a sports enthusiast at an early age.
Were you quarterback right off the bat?
I played organized football for the first time. We played a lot of ball in the yard, but I played organized football for the first time in the 5th grade. And they just kind of assign you a position. And I was a running back. Now, this was 5th grade through 8th grade. That's a pretty big gap and a pretty big size change. So I was small and kind of skinny, and so played a little running back. Fast. I was more scared than anything, I think, in the 5th grade. And but the next year in the 6th grade, I had a new coach, and again, they just kind of come through the first day and look at you and say, "You're going to play here." At least that's where you start. And this guy looked at me as Coach Hancock. I remember he says, "Looks like you're going." I was real thin, so you're going to be the split end. And about a half a dozen guys, said, "Coach, Archie needs to be the quarterback." Because that's what I played in the park at somebody's backyard, and that's what I wanted to play. So from there on, 6th grade on, I played quarterback.
Archie, if anybody had told you, fooling around in Drew, Mississippi, playing quarterback to high school, and you were also a brilliant baseball player and were drafted numerous times by baseball. If anybody had told you that your life was going to go down the road that it has gone down, what would you have said?
Well, I'd have said no way. I think like a lot of kids in America growing up in the 50s, early 60s, I had dreams of being a ball player. I actually wanted, like a lot of kids, wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and we played a lot of baseball. And I got to play, I was, I guess, somewhat advanced. I played high school baseball on the varsity in the 7th grade at an early age. Now, it wasn't big, but I got to play. So a lot of people, like you said now, like I said before, Gus, small town, you know, so just a few people in a small town are saying, well, he's going to be a Major League Baseball player. And I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to. But as it went on, we played all sports and was able to develop and get a college, have some opportunities to play basketball and football in college. I got drafted out of high school.
When did it dawn on the coaching profession? We ain't just got a quarterback, we got a hell of a quarterback.
Well,
When were you made aware of that?
I felt like I was fortunate to get to go to college to play football. I was about 6'2", 160 pounds my senior year in Drew High School. We won 5 games. We lost 5. And I was offered by 3 schools, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Tulane offered me scholarships. So that's not a whole lot. So I felt real fortunate. And it happened to be a year that Ole Miss signed 8 quarterbacks that year. They'd had great quarterbacks during my adolescence and growing up, but it'd fallen off a little bit. They signed 8 quarterbacks. But often Coach Vaught signed quarterbacks to play other positions.
Yes,
but I was glad to be one of those 8. I was coming from the smallest town, but when it all shook out after we played freshman ball in those days, but my sophomore year in 1968, Coach Vaught named me the starting quarterback. So first time he'd ever had a sophomore to start. So I felt real fortunate and blessed there. But as far as going beyond that, I'm not sure it really hit me until maybe my junior year. We had a good year in 1969. I grew some. I got a little bigger, and people are starting to say that possibly I could be a pro football player. Which
was that a thrill to you?
Yeah, I wanted to do it. As I said, I was playing baseball in college, but football had kind of overtaken baseball in my heart. I'm not sure if I just hadn't played so doggone much baseball that I was kind of tired of that. I enjoyed it, but when I thought about the professional ranks, football was exciting to me. We had a good team at Ole Miss, and we were having some
First
success.
time I saw you play broke my heart. Of course, y'all played LSU, and I'm an alumni, and my God Almighty, it was a tragic evening, and all I can remember is all of us driving with our heads down. I don't know how the hell we got home.
Well, I tell you, I have such wonderful memories of college football, but the LSU games were so special. In those days, there's no doubt. And growing up, the LSU-Ole Miss rivalry was the top rivalry in the South and one of the great rivalries in the nation.
LSU, though, did not come after you to play for them, did they?
No, but like I said, I was 6'2", 160 pounds, and we won 5 games in Drew, Mississippi. So it wasn't like not too many other people found me either, and I wasn't any hot shot blue chip prospect.
Another guy that happened to was an old boy from North Louisiana named Terry Bradshaw.
He was pretty good.
Pretty good old boy, huh?
Well, you know, that happens. I grew when I got to college and developed more at age 19 than I had at age 16 and 17.
In college, you broke every record. There's no award that you did not win. You were obviously the #1 talent in this country. So you get your degree, and who drafts you?
Well, I felt pretty fortunate to be drafted by the Saints. I actually felt fortunate to be drafted early. My particular year in 1971, the first 3 picks in the NFL draft were quarterbacks.
Who were the other 2?
The first New England Patriots had the first pick, Gus, and they selected Jim Plunkett, who'd won the Heisman Trophy that year. Had a wonderful year at Stanford, won the Rose Bowl. The Saints had the second pick. They selected me, and the Houston Oilers had the 3rd pick, and they picked Dan Pastorini. So that was 1, 2, 3.
No kidding.
We'd gotten wind that it was probably going to be 3 quarterbacks taken, that I was possibly going to be one of the 3. So I was elated out of the 3 to come to New Orleans. That was closer to Mississippi. We'd played here in the Sugar Bowl the year before. Of course, I'd played in Tiger Stadium twice, once with some success, once where we got hammered pretty good.
Amen.
And so that excited me. You'd say, well, yeah, I'd probably rather gone to the Dallas Cowboys or somewhere that were winning, but if you're going to be picked early, none of the 3 teams were winning, so I was excited about
Archie,
coming to New
those
Orleans.
were the days, that early period, though, where it was not necessarily big money even as a high draft choice. What I mean, compared to today.
Not compared to today. Of course, it was all relative, though, Gus. It was big money to
Pretty
me.
good. It looked good in Drew, huh?
Yeah, it looked real good. I'd spent 17 years in Drew, Mississippi, and 4 in Oxford, Mississippi, and now it was a pretty big transition. I had met my wife Olivia there at Ole Miss, and we got married in 1971, just prior to being drafted by the Saints. And of course, we moved to New Orleans, where we've lived ever since.
So, what was the New Orleans experience? How would you describe it? Good?
Oh yeah, this was the Saints expanded and got their franchise in 1967. So I came in '71. So it'd been 4 years. The bloom wasn't off. Now they'd gone through kind of their early years with veterans and kind of the people from the expansion draft, and then they decided let's go back and do it through the draft with a younger team. They changed coaches already I don't know how many times we've changed coaches here, but that was for the first time they'd had the change. But certainly a big transition for Olivia and me, moving to New Orleans. She was from Philadelphia, Mississippi. I was from Drew, Mississippi. We met at Ole Miss. We got married. We came to New Orleans.
Wow.
Big town to us. Right away was thrown into play, so I'm the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, and it was a huge transition.
There again, you won every award that a professional football player could win. That's been kind of the story of your athletic life and your personal life too, because you're a man who I would say, and this has suddenly become very, very important in professional athletics. You were a man, or are a man, as noted for your dignity and your personal code of behavior and morality. You've been known as much for that almost as your football. And that seems to be somewhat diminished today in our times.
Well, I think in professional sports today, I think, and maybe you can blame it on the money, I'm not sure what maybe just blame it on kind of a permissive society that we seem to have at times, that it was more common, I think, in my day, things, humility and sportsmanship. And
it was a more innocent time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But I credit that to always have to my upbringing, yes. my parents, my family, my hometown of Drew, and 4 wonderful years in Oxford at Ole Miss. My head coach there, John Vaught, who did so much. I lost my dad when I was a sophomore at Ole Miss. So Coach Vaught really filled that role in a lot of ways. And when I went through this time of kind of instant national attention,
yes, sir,
he was so helpful and impressed upon me that football is a team game, and these headlines that I'm getting, these nice awards that I'm winning, is a result of a lot of work from other people, and I knew that, but I'm glad he continued to impress it upon me, and I recognize that at a young age. And as I said,
because some kids fight it when someone's trying to be an influence. I've known many kids. And I can imagine being, I've never been one, a star athlete. That would put so many more pressures on a kid.
It is a lot of pressure. I don't agree with some athletes today who say they don't necessarily have to accept that responsibility as a role model to make a good impression on kids. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's that hard. Now, I think if you're a good person, and the majority of people are, then it just takes a little more effort, a little more time to stop and smile and sign that autograph for
there's
kids.
There's still a lot of Drew, Mississippi, and Archie Manning.
Well, I don't ever want it to go away either.
It's still very much there. I mean, I could be sitting in the drugstore there talking to somebody. Archie, now a question that really fascinates me. You and Olivia have produced this staggering next generation quarterback, Peyton, and I understand your younger son is already showing these great talents. Here's my question. How much of that do you think is genetics, inherited from you, and how much of that is being Archie Manning's son and being able to work with a world-class athlete In other words, if those kids had been born the sons of John and Jane Doe, would they be quarterbacking like they are?
I don't really know the answer totally to that, Gus. Maybe there's certainly, we've seen it in a lot of cases, there's something to genes handed down. I'd say in the case of Peyton, you know, I really think I can kind of reflect back, it's been a long time ago, our athletic abilities are not real similar, yet he used to ask me a million questions. I felt real strongly about not forcing my kids to do anything athletically and trying to stay out of the way and letting their coaches guide them, not me. I think that's dangerous many times as a parent, especially one I was playing professional football at the time. But he had these aspirations and goals, and he asked me a lot of questions. I personally think Peyton would be a pro football player today because I know how hard he's worked. And some people, I've heard some people in the media, and even a couple of his fellow athletes, I don't know if it's jealousy there or not, say, well, you know, everything was kind of handed to him.
We tend to dismiss hard work in our time.
Well,
It's overnight, a miracle, bang, you know.
Well, there are. I mean, you know, the good Lord gave some people more athletic ability than others, but I do know how hard he worked. He wasn't the fastest guy by any means, or the quickest. He worked extremely hard, and he has really a lot inside of him that where he really wants to excel. Now, Eli has, even though is a totally different animal, different personality, kind of a different makeup, he's kind of following the same path. He played at the same high school. Their careers were so similar there. Chose a different college. He's kind of entered college in a different way. I think as a parent, a safer way, kind of an internship, if you will. But he also has worked extremely hard. He wants to do well. The one thing that makes me feel good, Gus, it's not like I don't think they feel like they have to live up to anything, or they're trying to be something just because their father had done it. They really love what they're doing. And now I have a third son. And by the way, you know, Olivia and I are just so blessed. We have 3 wonderful children. Our oldest son, Cooper, played high school football, had a spinal cord injury at Ole Miss after he'd gone to play. And he's the life of our family. He's our family clown, comedian, but he's doing real well in business.
Wonderful.
He's given us a daughter-in-law, which we're so excited about. And as I said, we're really blessed with 3 children. Nothing to do with throwing touchdowns.
Let me ask you this. Does when your sons play in a game, be it at the college level or professional, does it put as much pressure on you as when you played less, or what?
Yeah.
More?
I'm a lot of Saturdays and Sundays a wreck. I really am. And I shouldn't be that way. I mean, I've been out there. Maybe that's the reason. They're playing a position that is tough. It's a hard position to play, and I think it's harder now, and certainly than when I play. I really do.
Does your wife wince when Peyton takes a hard hit?
Oh yeah, and I asked her. I said, you know, I don't remember you being that concerned when I played. And she always has if I say that, she always has the same answer. You know, that's one of my babies out there, and
Archie,
she still looks at it.
How
like
have you managed to keep those boys' heads on straight? They're your sons, they're quarterbacks, except for your son, who I know to be a very successful businessman. How have you all accomplished that? I'm sure you and your wife.
Well, I think wonderful mothers deserve the majority of the credit for that. Gus, we tried real hard to live a normal life in raising our children. I think, you know, New Orleans is a wonderful city. We love this area, but New Orleans is a tough place to raise kids.
Yes, sir.
But I think it means you have to maybe give them a little more personal attention and time. And I don't think I get asked this like I'm some expert on raising kids. I have a theory on raising children that you we all love our children. We're going to just try to give them as much time and attention as you can. And then I think you got to pray for a lot of good fortune, because it's hard.
Archie,
it's hard.
How do you feel about Louisiana? After all, you came here as a very young man, and this is a program about Louisiana. How do you feel about Louisiana, quickly?
Well, as I said before, I was glad to come to Louisiana. I love the state of Mississippi, where I grew up and where I went to college. So I was glad to be coming to a neighboring state where my family and friends could come see me play. When I came here, when we moved here in 1971, my plan was to live in New Orleans until I quit playing football, and then I'm going back to Mississippi.
Going to Mississippi.
And that's been 30 years ago, and I'm still right here in New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
This city, this area of southeast Louisiana, and this entire state has been wonderful to us. I'm truly indebted to the people in this state, how wonderful they've been to me, how they accepted us. And that was maybe early on as a football player, but I hadn't played football in 15 years.
You were accepted because you never did anything but bring pride to the people who were fortunate enough to be associated with you, to watch you play, to get to know you later in the multitude of charities in which you participate. And I'm going to say on behalf of all Louisianians, you're only half Mississippian, Archie. The rest of you, Louisiana. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This informative educational series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of the state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for more than 65 years.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org.